Welcome everyone to the special session of council for the town of Greater Napanee for the 26th day of June 2025. Just as we call the meeting to order, I just want to remind everyone that this afternoon's meeting is being recorded and live streamed via our YouTube channel. And so welcome to the folks that are at home, welcome to the folks that are here in the council chambers, and welcome to those folks that will watch us tomorrow, next week, or next year. So without further ado, we'll get going. We'll start this afternoon's meeting off with our opening proceedings, which is the national anthem. So I'll ask everyone to stand and face the flag for our national anthem.
Sean.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, prove patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thanks, folks. I think the more we do this, I think the better we're getting at it. So thanks, everyone, for taking part in that. We'll move along and we'll look for an adoption of the agenda as presented. Moved by Councillor Martin, second by Deputy Mayor Calver. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Seeing none, items for discussion, and I think Mr. Nobes is going to come up and give us a presentation with respect to growth and infrastructure, corporate land registry, surplus property identification, and welcome, Michael. And just started off by saying thank you for all the work that you've done on this. I know it wasn't an easy task. It was probably better described as a Herculean task to try and put all these things together, but we are grateful. And I suspect we'll have a very profitable afternoon. So whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Worship, for the kind words. They're much appreciated. It has been a heavy lift, and this was one of the mandate items that was in my mandate letter from the CAO and approved through council. So it's great to be able to cross that off the list to get this complete and in front of council for consideration. What I will be doing today is I'll be going through the proposed or contemplated surplus properties and specific properties that council may wish to consider surplus, but I believe deserves more discussion and give some background on where staff foresee the potential future use of those lands. So kind of divided into two buckets, one being properties that are identified surplus by staff for discussion and feedback from council. And bucket number two is just properties that require a little more discussion prior to coming back to council with a final surplus list. So I won't go through every single piece of property that the town owns. I've left out obvious properties such as cemeteries, facilities, boat launches, those sorts of things, and have really focused on properties that would make some sense to put on the open market for sale. So Prior to me getting into that, I'll turn things over to the CAO for any remarks he wished to make.
Great, thank you, Michael, and through you, your worship. On Tuesday evening, I mentioned to council some of the major levers that you have in your governance role. In addition to, policies, bylaws, and the like, budget is a really big one. Service levels, very big one. Land, very big one. And so what we're going to talk about today is this is an area where council has significant ability to make change in the community, change in your finances. You can sell it, you can build on it, you can swap it, you can create deals to encourage certain kinds of development with it. It does represent the largest single asset that we have, lands and buildings. And I'd remind council that your direction about ensuring that, all of these corporate assets that can be sold openly through an open market process are done that way. And Michael will talk about the difference between Class 1 and Class 2. But this represents significant progress. And as we move forward, we will also bring forward suggestions if and when we sell a property about how to invest those sums of money. With that, I will turn things over to Michael, and I will echo the mayor's remarks. This was a Herculean task, and there are lots of choices ahead of council.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. And whenever you're ready, Mike.
Thank you, Worship. And as mentioned by the CAO, yes, we do delineate between Class 1 and Class 2 properties. Class 2 properties are predominantly lands that are either landlocked and are, really not able to be developed, and they really only are beneficial to abutting properties. So Class 1 lands, on the other hand, are independently developable. They're of large enough size. They have enough road frontage to ultimately be developed. So staff have gone through the listing in which we'll discuss today, and we've identified what we believe to be Class 1 and Class 2 lands, and they are itemized in the sheets in front of council in I'll say the middlemost column for your awareness. So I'll focus on just properties that are on this list that is in front of council, titled Potential Surplus Property Listing, June 2026, 2025. And we'll effectively be going down from the top down. So the list is just ordered from the lowest roll number to the highest roll number. And there's been no rhyme or reason other than going in that order. The lands identified as Suttard subdivision, former Suttard subdivision, and part of a larger land holding, those will be presented at the very end. As within this presentation, they're shown as one block, but they are constituting separate pieces of property. So we have several items showing on this list which really pertain to one property as a whole. So we'll skip over that, but we will come back to it at the very end. So the first property is the municipal address from MPAC is 37 West Street. Local context is this is immediately south of the Morningstar Mission and has frontage on West Street. This property would be independently developable. It's got enough setback from the high water mark. There are services, both sanitary and water, and hydro can be provided to this property. So staff see this as a Class 1 property. Upon internal review, we haven't identified any true use of these lands or immediate need for the municipality to contain or to retain ownership of these lands. So staff are recommending or have identified that this could be a potential surplus property identified as a Class 1 piece of property, and be looking for any comments or questions that council might have, again, to inform a future report back to council on a final recommended surplus listing, which we would bring back on July 22nd.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Michael. And so with I guess the goal today is just to get some feedback from council. If council has any feedback, whether positive, negative, or indifferent, and then it'll be brought back to us in the July meeting, I guess, Michael, to actually form some resolutions and things like that. So who wants to start? Go ahead, Councilor Purnell.
Thank you, Worship, through you. Michael, thank you, as everyone's saying, thank you for this. Somebody who's in this industry and know what it takes. So I'm just wondering with this property, if you go south of the little road that's there and then to the waterfront, without me pulling this up, who owns that little chunk of waterfront land there?
Through your worship, if the ArcGIS program were working, there's a blackout unfortunately on it today. I'd pull it up to show. We don't own between this parcel and the river, but we actually own a parcel in the river bottom. But in between those two parcels, so immediately south of this, is owned by I believe the estate of Barbara Cowell. So I think Bruce Cowell would be operating that estate.
Okay, thank you. My only thoughts with this piece of land and that little cove, if you will, would in the future make for a really great kayaking, canoe launch, that type of thing. So I'm just wondering, I just wanted to put that out to council. If we did make it surplus and sell it, that could have be used for parking or something like that, as long as we had access to the shoreline.
Thank you, Councilor Purnell. Go ahead, Councilor Hicks.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. My thoughts were sort of along the same line as Councillor Purnell. I've pulled up the link that you provided. So the pale green we don't own, but the orange square we do. Okay. It is. I just went in through the email and voila, there it was. So we don't own any, it's not actually on the water. That's what I was interested to see. Because any sort of waterfront development or expansion of the docks or anything down that way, if we sold it, because once you sell it, you can't get it back. But you've answered the question that the waterfront is owned by another party. So thank you.
Yeah, and through your worship, the in-water parcel that we own, the survey from the day that it was surveyed did show that it was partly waterfront owned or access, sorry, not access, ownership, partially inland and predominantly in the water. Over time, that has eroded away, and so it's unlikely that we still have the same boundaries of ownership as was shown in the survey from the 1970s, for example. But at one point in time, that in-water parcel did contain true waterfront ownership in a sliver, if you will. I did just want to point out too, we do own a property on the west side of West Street, so wrapping around the apartment building in this image on the south side. So we do have ownership along the water in that, if it can be seen. I'm not sure if you can see it, Councillor Hicks, in the GIS map or not. So there's good potential in that property for trail development, for example. And that's not identified as potential surplus as a result of that potential use.
Great, thanks. Go ahead. I think Deputy Mayor Cowell had a question or a comment.
So are we gonna thinking about retaining the property that has in-water property?
Through your worship, yes. Staff are not recommending that property be listed at this point in time. Given that the survey from the day identified ownership along the waterfront, there may still be some opportunity for trail development technically on that mostly in-water parcel, but there is appearing land ownership associated with that too.
Great, thanks, Michael. And just for my own clarity though, that this parcel that we're talking about surplusing isn't actually connected to that. There's something in between there then.
Correct, your worship. Yeah, there is an intervening privately owned property between this property and the in-water property south of that.
Yeah, great, thanks. Go ahead, Councilor Purnell.
Thank you, Worship. Through you, after this conversation, I think that we should maybe surplus it and sell a piece of property. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councilor Purnell. That's kind of where I'm leaning as well, but we can make those decisions in July. But thanks for your comments. Is there anything else on this piece of property? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Cowell.
Yeah, no, I finally got my map up to work here, and yeah, we're talking about the orange chunk, not the green chunk there, so, yeah, awesome, yep, sell it. Surplus and sell.
Thanks. Yeah, we're gonna go one by one, Mike, but we don't need to make any resolutions today. I think staff is just wants a sense as to where we're sort of leaning so that when they bring something back to us in July, that we'll be able to go property by resolution so that everybody has an opportunity to weigh in, and then democracy, I guess, takes over. So, okay, is there any other comments or questions with respect to this piece of property here? Seeing none, Michael, on to the next one.
This next piece of property is at the eastern limit of Milligan Lane on the north side. So this is immediately east of McCully Cabinets. This is a vacant property. The water and sewer services, the mains actually, they stop just west of this property. So there would be a modest extension required to service this property with water and sewer. However, it is certainly a viable parcel for development. And staff are recommending that it be surplused. We're not aware of any constraints on the property apart from the lack of servicing, which would necessitate some extension. But prior to entertaining any offers, if council wishes to list this as surplus and get any offers, staff would bring back a report that would identify the anticipated costing of extending services at that time to give council a fulsome understanding of what the cost benefit would be in the future. So at this time, it's hard to get the costing done or the cost estimates done for extending the services, but staff recommend that this be a surplus piece of property and that it ultimately be listed, but looking for any feedback that council might have.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Is there any comments or questions with respect to this piece of property? I think the only comment I would have, Michael, is it doesn't necessarily attach to anything else that we own at this point. It's kind of orphaned out in there in the middle of privately owned property, I guess.
That's correct, Your Worship. So north, east, and west are privately owned parcels. Immediately south, abutting it is Milligan Lane, the road allowance of Milligan Lane. And then further south of that is private ownership. So yeah, it's an orphan parcel essentially, but it's a class 1 property. It can be independently developed. It's a good piece of property.
And it's zoned commercial, I guess?
It's business park zoned.
Business park zone,
Yep.
sorry. Yeah, okay, thanks. That's all I have. Is there any other questions or comments from anyone? I'd lean towards surplusing that one as well, but that's just my personal thoughts, so. Okay, if there's nothing else, moving on to the next one, which is.
This is 12 Market Square. So we've had numerous
This should
discussions
be
on
a very
this. This should be quick.
conversation, I believe.
I can give council just an update on the hydro situation and the listing timing. So we met with hydro again. A number of hydro staff were on site. We've landed on a two paths essentially. So we're going down path 1 and we're trying to open up a door to path 2. So path number 1 is separate the services between Town Hall and 12 Market Square. Today, I just got the draft layout from hydro to help move that along so we can actually separate those services, which is good news. Path number 2, which is going to be challenging to open up, is the fact that primary conductors are running quite honestly over top of the building, over top of 12 Market Square. The actual conductors run over top of that building. So when this property sells, and if anybody wants to add stories, hydro needs to relocate that infrastructure. And in order for them to do so, they can't do it above ground. They have to do it below ground. And in order to do that, there's going to be a mountain of effort to get that done. A lot of technical details are going to need to be reviewed. We've been working with hydro on where we foresee the actual conductors running underground, where substations need to be and those sort of things, or pad mount transformers rather. But there's a need for both single phase and 3-phase power in that alleyway essentially behind 12 Market Square. So there's a lot of nuts and bolts and moving parts on this, and hydro is making progress on that. But in order to get this property listed, separating the services was item number 1, which we've got good progress on. And we're trying to get a game plan for item number 2 so that when that property sells, it's an easy, there's an easy solution, I guess you could say, for the future purchaser.
And depending what the future person wants to do with it, may be a non-issue, I guess, if they're going to leave it as such, right?
Yeah, exactly. And one item that we do have on that property is the generator. So that generator is back feeding Town Hall, which then feeds through to 12 Market Square when there's a power outage. That generator cannot be repurposed at other municipal buildings. It really only can be repurposed at Town Hall. The only issue is there's really not a lot of room here to put that. So we're investigating what potential options we have for relocating that generator. And if there physically is no space for it, then we'll come back to council with a recommendation of either including it in the listing or potentially selling it separately. But it would certainly be a selling feature to be able to include that generator with that building. The only problem there is the transfer switch for that generator to feed 12 Market is in this building. And that's going to be no small task to relocate that. So ideally, we can find a spot here, but more to come.
Councillor Hicks.
I'm envisioning a plate of spaghetti with a never-ending noodle. Thank you, through your worship. So Michael, when I look out the window and I see that pole and there's just a conglomeration of transformers and wires and et cetera, either we have to put a condition on the building that they can't go more than 2 stories. Could they even do 2 stories if nothing has changed? That's my first question.
Through your worship, no, they wouldn't be able to add any stories because they're within the limit of approach. So Hydro would, if there were an inkling to go up in stories, Hydro would say no, unless this goes underground. Our zoning permits it. So we allow it locally. Hydro would limit it today.
My next question is, and anybody with real estate background, feel free to jump in, but if I were looking at that property and I've looked at it and thought, oh, if I had $1 million, wink, wink, which I don't, what would I do? I would foresee 2 stories. It lends itself to that with the surrounding buildings. If we tell Hydro we want the underground work done, we can still list the building and then they will know that that work is being done and they have the potential to go up.
Through your worship, yes, correct. So we wanted to get the building in its current state serviced with Hydro. We've got a plan for that in hand. The second part, if a future purchaser wished to go up, in staff's opinion, we want to have a plan, at least a good conceptual plan from Hydro that would be actionable by the future purchaser. Hydro has indicated that given it's quite honestly a major safety issue, how close those conductors are to balconies in the rear of buildings on 12 Market Square are. So there's a lot of issues there. Staff have been encouraging Hydro to undertake this relocation and underground work at their cost to alleviate the safety concerns, to A, not put the burden on the municipality, and B, ideally not put the burden on a potential purchaser, so that it's not reflected in the sale price with the town.
So from my perspective, as we're developing Market Square and bringing it back to its former glory, if all of that is gone, to me, that is better for the whole area because it's not an eyesore and it's no longer a safety issue. Do we have the means to say to Hydro, look, we want it done? Like, we're going to separate the service. That's a given. But we want all of that done. Underground, what's it going to take? How long is it going to take? And can we list the property advising potential buyers that all of that work is either going to be started or is ongoing or will be completed at not their cost and not our cost?
So through your worship, yes, the intent is to list it with that commentary included, if you will. Hydro, it is a mess. Like, it is no less than a mess. Hydro has not been able to come up with a concrete plan of action for doing that work, because they need to determine whole number of technical matters, including implied easements based on the wiring being above ground, and if they can drop it down onto the ground. They need to do a lot of legal work. There's a lot that goes into it. So Hydro won't have a plan of action by the time we list it. But I think we can indicate to potential purchasers that we are working actively with Hydro to determine a plan of action. I don't know that I would be able to or be comfortable with committing that there won't be a cost to either town or potential purchaser. But we would make it quite clear that we're working with Hydro to hopefully ensure that it's fully borne by Hydro. Again, we just don't have any, we can't have any commitment yet from Hydro.
I'm amazed at the progress that's been made just in a short time, like less than a month. So, thank you.
Sometimes you got to push hard. So I think, Mr. Grant, did you want to weigh in on what Michael said? Because I got to go to Councillor Pennell. So
I did. So just briefly to members of council. So I know Michael's been very diligent and conveying the town's position on those energy assets. I think nobody today would construct an electrical system as it is presented there. At some point, it will likely be an organization to organization discussion about whose responsibility it is to relocate assets that in and of themselves, I would suggest present a public safety risk, if that's fair, Michael.
thank you, Mr. Grant. Go ahead, Dave.
Thank you, Worship, through you. Michael, I'm just thinking here, would it be beneficial for us to do a site-specific zoning on that building to keep it single story for now? So that when the purchaser is buying it, they know that they can't go up until this work is done, and then maybe we could change their zoning for something along those lines if they want to do it. I'm just thinking so there's no surprises at the end of the day. Putting all that wording and stuff like that on the listing could possibly work. But I'm thinking that this electrical work's not going to be done in any time soon. And, you know, if we leave the building the way it is, we might be able to sell it faster than saying, you know, with all this other stuff might scare people away is what I'm trying to say. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Yep, through your worship, we certainly could do that if that's council's wishes. I would foresee a most likely an impact in the sale price and the value of the property as a result of that constraint, if you will. But there already is a constraint, essentially there, a pseudo constraint, not through zoning, but through what's physically above the building. So let me take that back. Let me digest that and look into it a little bit more, but I'll note that and bring that back with a recommendation.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Is there anything else on this piece of property? Seeing none, Michael, we'll move on to the next one when you're ready.
Thank you, Worship. This is a piece of property that is abutting the former Public Works access road, which is now the secondary access road, right at the corner of Palace Road and County Road 2. This property that's outlined here abuts a larger property that's zoned for 2 apartment buildings and a total of 56 units. Between the 2 buildings could be up to 56 units. The town doesn't really have a need for this. Staff haven't identified any true need for this parcel. We would want to keep our secondary access, which would be to the west of this property. But we do foresee this as being something that could be merged with the property to the east to make a more viable building envelope potentially. Staff need to determine whether or not the county would permit an entrance in such close proximity to County Road 2 to determine if this could even be a viable developable property on its own. The secondary public works yard in and of itself is far too close to that intersection, but it's not used routinely. So adding another intersection essentially right beside it is likely to be looked down upon, if you will, by the county, just from a traffic management perspective. So I believe we've identified this as Class 1, but I have a feeling that given the access limitations, it might end up being Class 2, but I would I would articulate that in the July 22nd report in more detail. But looking for council's thoughts on potentially listing this as surplus.
Thanks, Michael. Go ahead, Dave.
Thank you, worship, through you. Michael, would there be so the service road that's there now for the public works yard, that's going to stay, and could we use that as a service road and have the entrance come off of that road?
That is exactly the discussion that I need to have with the county to see if they would permit that. I know there's a future roundabout planned here, so that is likely going to be considered in that potential option. And the tails leaving the roundabout might have conflict with any future entrance to this property off of Palace Road. I would say it's going to depend on what the county says. So that secondary access road is very infrequently used. It's being used now given the water main installation going in, but it's extremely infrequent. This could potentially, well, this would have more routine use of that, which makes it more of a risk, I guess you could say, a traffic risk, given the proximity to that intersection. So that is the conversation I'm looking to have with the county. I just didn't have enough time prior to this meeting.
Okay, thank you. And when you have that conversation with the county, if we could have, I'm sure you'll ask this anyway, but a timeline of what they're thinking of for that roundabout as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, we'll do.
Thanks, Councillor Pennell. And you kind of tweaked something on my mind there, Dave, is that, is there an opportunity to move that access road over to where that piece of property is, and then that piece of property becomes right on the corner of Palace Road and Highway 2?
So through your worship, relocating the town's access road through this, essentially flipping where this property is?
Yes.
With the intent to convey that to the county for roundabout purposes?
Either convey it to the county, or does it make it a Class 1 piece of property? I know we're still going to have access problems, whether it's Palace Road or Highway 2, but it would be a corner lot at that point, right?
Yeah, so I'll inquire about that too, to see if that would change anything. We do have the slope. We're just coming out of the rock cut. We do have the rock cut on the west side. There will be some technical matters to go through with the county, but I'll certainly inquire on both of those points.
I'm just thinking that access, at least it moves it away from that intersection, right? So, but, and I think you're probably absolutely right. If I'm not mistaken, that piece of property that's kind of sort of trying to be developed there, I think they had access problems with there as well, if I'm not mistaken. So,
yeah, through your worship, the site plan for that property showed essentially a snaking, switchbacking driveway much further east of the intersection at Palace Road and County Road 2. County was satisfied with that setback distance, but it's quite a switchback of a driveway to get in there, which again, the development hasn't proceeded, but that was what worked on paper with the county. So again, further discussion needed, but generally, does council have any concerns with listing this as surplus?
I don't think so, but I think there's got to be, before we get anywhere near trying to put a sign on, I think there's got to be an awful lot of work to try and establish what's the best configuration for that, I guess, because I mean, there seems to be a use for it, not by us, but by somebody. I think it's just who that somebody is kind of at question at this point. Is there anything else? No, we'll move on to the next one then. Thanks, Mike.
This property is on County Road 2, essentially right across from Monroe's general store. This was vested by the town after a failed tax sale a few years ago. The zoning for this is general commercial. So the property that immediately abuts it to the west is a house, a legal non-conforming house. So meaning the house can continue to be used as a house, but any future development, if that house were demolished and the property redeveloped, it would need to be for commercial purposes. You'll see a very small amount of frontage on County Road 2. The county has identified that there would not be permitted a separate access through that small frontage. It would need to be a shared access with the property to the west. So it certainly would be a challenging parcel to develop. but staff are identifying that it would be a class 1 property if there is the potential to get an entrance in there. So it's possible that the neighbor buys it to, get some room, get some buffer room, but staff see it as a potential class 1 property if the county will permit an entrance. And again, we need to double back with the county to confirm that understanding from a few years ago.
Thanks, Mike. Is there any questions or comments with that? Any thoughts? No, seeing none. Sorry, go ahead, Dave.
Sorry, your worship, it just came to my mind. Michael, sorry, worship through you, Michael, the property that is well treed, what zoning is that, do you know?
So the property, I'll say east of this, that is, I believe that's zoned future development. I think it's designated general commercial in our official plan. It's owned by Lafarge. So it's part of a larger land holding. It's not part of any licensed quarry. It's just owned by Lafarge.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Michael. Is there anything further? Seeing none, I don't see any reason we need to hang on to it, but obviously there's going to be a little more work to go on to that one too, I think. So if there's nothing further, we'll move on to the next one.
So on your the list in front of you, I'm jumping over all of the Sutter subdivision line items and going down to 430 Church Street. So this is an independently developable property. It's got quite a slope to it. If you've been down Church Street, you'll know this property. You can kind of see it from the aerial imagery. There's a lack of services on from a sanitary perspective. So there would need to be a pumped sanitary service up to Newburgh Road, or a small extension from Newburgh Road made down to this property. There's a couple ways that we could do it. There's also the potential for allowing a septic system on this property if that's cost prohibitive. But by and large, it's of the right size. It's of the minimum size. It's got road frontage. There's potential for easy connection to potable water. It's really going to be the challenge with the sanitary. If they can, stomach the cost of putting in a long service line and a pump that continuously pumps up to the main on Newburgh Road to the north. If they can't, it might be more palatable for a small septic system for a future single detached house on this property. It's zoned residential type 6, which means, typically apartment buildings. That is not of the size for an apartment building. So I would foresee that property being zoned R1 through R4. So meaning singles or a semi-detached that could go in there. But again, the slope is really going to be a challenging aspect for developing this property.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Any questions or comments with respect to that? Seeing none. Again, it wouldn't appear as though we would have any foreseeable use for that piece of property, I don't think, right?
No, and there's parkland, new parkland immediately to the south in the Millhouse Yard subdivision. It's fairly undersized to be used as a park. It's seemingly an orphan parcel.
Okay, is there anything, anybody else have any questions of or any thoughts? Okay. Yeah, I think, like I said, I don't think that, I don't see any foreseeable use for that property, at least for us anyways. So I would say we surplus it if we haven't already. So that'd be my opinion on it anyways. So thanks, Michael. If there's nothing further, we'll move on to the next one.
This is a very large property on Jim Kimmett Boulevard that is zoned arterial commercial. It's about 20 acres. It's got an ample amount of frontage, and I see this as a very big ticket item for the municipality if we were successful in selling this. The only problem per se is that there is no natural gas on anywhere really within reach of this area on Jim Kimmett Boulevard. And sanitary and water services would need to be extended. They're not extremely long extensions of water and sewer, and could very easily be made up within the sale price of this property. I think we're looking at, a potential valuation $3+ million, just given current market conditions. If we were to have a sale, it seems like that is in line with what the going rate is for this type of property. So I see this as a very big ticket item, that if we were able to sell this, it would really certainly help with bumping up reserve balances within the town. So again, the future uses would be, more or less what you see along Jim Kimmett Boulevard today, a varying array of potential commercial uses. And really the only financial constraints that would be put on this would be extending water and sewer to make it a developable piece of property. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer, but I think this is a very strategic parcel that could be surplused.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Go ahead, Dave.
Thank you, Worship, through you. Michael, that little pump station that's just kind of kitty corner to it, is that water or sewer?
Water and sewer end there. I believe that's a sampling station, a water sampling station.
Oh, it's water.
Yeah,
sampling.
so
Oh,
sanitary flows by gravity to the pump station that's near Home Hardware, and then it's pumped up from there.
okay, thank you.
Thanks. Go ahead, Mike.
I'd seek guidance from our commercial real estate agent and see what is more marketable, what might get us the best value for this land, whether it's one large land holding or carving it up into multiple smaller parcels. But today we're just looking at, does council have appetite to surplus this?
And thanks, Mike, because you must have been reading my mind, because I was going to suggest, is this a piece of property that we may want to treat it like our industrial lands, where somebody comes in and say, listen, I need 5 acres or I need 10 acres. Is it, because I mean, it's own commercial, obviously, but is it, and I know I'm not going to ask you the question because I know you're not in the real estate business, and that would be some advice that we get from our real estate business, and that's not why we're here today. So, but again, if we don't have any foreseeable future in this piece of property, it may be in our best interest to surplus and sell it in some form or other anyway. Is there anything else? We'll move on to the next one.
Next piece of property is also on Jim Kimmett Boulevard. This is directly across from Home Hardware. This property has quite a number of constraints from a floodplain perspective and from a just water culvert perspective. You can see the 2 large double culverts coming under Jim Kimmett Boulevard. There's a lot of water that flows through essentially the middle of this property. But outside of those constraints, there is a 1 or 2 building envelopes at the northwest and the northeast corners of these properties. Certainly a lot of constraints and floodplain mapping that would need to be done to understand exactly what a potential purchaser could do with that property. But from staff's perspective, I don't believe we have a need for this property other than retention of ownership of easements to allow our water to continue to flow from the north to the south to the river, to the stream, sorry.
Okay, any questions or comments with respect to that? And I think I would have to agree with your thoughts on it, Michael. It's I think there's some value there, and I don't see where we would use it. And I guess in my world it'd be waterfront property, but that's I'm not an expert at it either. So, is there anything else? Anyone else that would like to add? Seeing none, and we'll move on to the next one.
So this is part of our industrial land holding, which we sort of alluded to previously. This is the overall land holding is broken up into two parcels. One to the, I'll say, the north of Circuit Rider Drive, which you can see on this map, and another parcel to the south. So these parcels are being held in I'll say, one large land holding that gives council the flexibility to either carve out smaller parcels or larger parcels as interested individuals come forward. There is a draft road network that's within the listing materials for these lands that identifies the anticipated future road network and potential parcel sizing for within these lands here. So the intent with the sale of these lands is as the town sells parcels that we can incrementally extend services and the road to help service those lands that are being sold, which ultimately builds the industrial tax base and effectively covers off the cost of extending those services through the sale price. So it brings on employment lands, it brings in revenue generation. So they're held in one large land holding. This is already considered surplus, just looking for council's endorsement to leave it on the surplus list.
Thanks, Michael. Thoughts, questions? I think we're probably going to leave it there by the sounds of it. So thanks, Mike. If I want to move on to the next one, if there's nothing else.
And much like the same, this is just the balance of the property on the north side of what would be Circuit Rider Drive's potential extension out to County Road 41. That's the bisecting ownership. So this is a large property as well. So it's again held in one large block. We foresee this being our capstone parcel. It's a corner lot on 41 and Goodyear Road. A lot of visibility. From a staffing perspective, we're looking to retain this property and sell to a larger employer in one large block. So I'll say the finger out at the northeast corner, the little bump out, that would ultimately end up being a separate parcel, and it would square up the boundaries of this property. And I believe that's shown in the listing materials that are online through Rogers and Trainer today. But again, just looking to get the consensus that this in fact remains surplus.
Yep, great. Thanks, Michael. Go ahead, Dave.
Thank you, Worship. Through you, Michael, what are we going to do with that house we bought? That's out of this piece of land.
Yeah, that house is shown as part of this pin, so it's merged in with this. Staff are investigating cost of demolition. So we've had a hazardous building materials assessment completed to determine what's able to be disposed of through landfill, what's a hazardous substance. We intend to go out for tender to get pricing on cost to get rid of that building to make that property more marketable.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Is there anything else? Seeing none, we'll move on. And I think you know that we're probably content with leaving it the way it is.
So this property is at the end of Community Road on the north side. What you can see here is that there appears to be quite a substantial ditch running through the property, kind of in the northeast to southwest direction. That is not mapped by the Conservation Authority as a sensitive feature. Most of the floodplain is truly east of this property. So I believe there might be the opportunity to locally fill that in and reroute any waters that are coming from the north and east onto this property today and reroute it with a ditch essentially on the east side of this property. The only issue here, again, is there's no water, there's no sewer, they need to be extended, and hydro would need a significant extension as well. Nothing that can't be done, but there's also a road upgrade required because this section of road was not finished off. It was just left in a granular state. It's in some disrepair. It needs some attention, but it's an independently conveyable parcel. It's of an adequate size, has adequate frontage. It would just be a matter of getting things up to speed as far as servicing to make it truly viable for development. And staff wouldn't be recommending we do any extension of services until we get any sort of firm offer and commitment before any of that works were to proceed.
Great, thanks, Mike. Is there any questions or comments with respect to this piece? Seeing none, and I think this one's already been surplused as well, Michael. Am I right there or no?
This was surplused in 2008.
So, okay, I don't see any will to unsurplus it, so if there's nothing further, we'll move on to the next one.
So this property is abutting the first property immediately to the east. So you can kind of see where on the west side of this property where that other parcel would be, sort of in the middle of it. This is a large block immediately east that has frontage on Kimmett Side Road and Van Leuven Road. And as you can see, there's substantial floodplain watercourse action going on here. It's fairly well understood by the Conservation Authority as far as flood elevations here. So identifying exactly where flood prone lands are versus greenfield lands, if you will, is something that certainly could be easily accomplished. But staff see this as another very viable parcel that has potential for good use from a private development perspective, insofar as it could be possible light industrial or arterial commercial. There's a mix of zoning on this property, so it's very large land holding. There's a lot of opportunity here. Again, this is something that we can consider. Is this best sold as one parcel, or is this best sold in several parcels? Is it best to retain this and come up with a more fulsome plan for this, like we have with the industrial lands to the north? That's something that would be flushed out by staff, but looking to understand council's position on whether or not this should be surplused in general.
Thanks, Michael. Anyone thoughts? I'm getting some nods about the surplusing comments, so I'm thinking that's probably the direction we should go. Obviously, it's going to need a little more work to it, but again, I don't know if there's any use for the municipality in the foreseeable future, so.
I would note we do have water infrastructure that cuts through this property. Like with the culverts on Jim Kimmett Boulevard, we need to retain ownership of easements for that underground infrastructure, but not that it would render the property undevelopable at all. It really does not. It's just a matter of the water that goes through this property in an east-west direction, goes north on Kimmett Side Road and then east to Goodyear. So it goes from a booster station to the west on Community Road all the way through here up to the north and out to the east to get all the way to Goodyear. So it was the shortest path back in the 1980s.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Thank you, Worship. Sorry, Michael, I had a thought in my head while I was going, while you were talking that. So if I'm about to ask you a question that you already talked about, was there not a talk about an EDR route or something like that coming off of Community Road at one time and coming through that? And going back,
I can't recall.
5 or 10 years ago.
I can't recall personally. Yeah, I honestly can't recall.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, go ahead, Mike.
My understanding, and the clerk can correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's been resolved.
From memory, I think we might have cleaned that up last term, I think. Yeah, I think we did, so. Is there anything else? Seeing none, go ahead, Mike.
This is a triangular piece of property on Kimmett Side Road. So this is a very challenging parcel to develop for two reasons. One, there is a identified water course on the east side, so I'll say the long side of the triangle here, and the required setbacks in the general industrial zone would ultimately eat up the entire developable area of this property. There's truly no use from staff's perspective that we would be able to do anything with this or sell it on the open market and see any viable development of it, given the configuration of this triangular parcel. If it were a true rectangular parcel or a square, there might be some more opportunity, but given that it's a triangle, it really impacts. There's essentially no building envelope on this property as a result of that.
Okay, any thoughts or questions? I'm hearing some rumblings about surplusing it, but,
And through your worships, the staff, given that staff would identify this as a class 2 property, given that it's not independently developable, it's really only beneficial as a lot addition to a neighboring property.
okay. Go ahead, Brian.
Is that something we should be talking to the neighbors surrounding it to see what they would be interested in?
Yeah, so if council wishes to surplus it, staff would initiate having those conversations with abutting property owners to see who's interested in this, if anybody, to then bring back a report to council for further action.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Grant.
Thank you, and through your worship, just so by way of reminder for members of council with the recently passed land disposition bylaw, class 1, you would end up putting a sign on it. You would collect the bids. You would sell it for the best offer you could. Class 2 would be a different process. That would be negotiations with the staff member in charge of land, and that would be Michael. Would still come to council for discussion. We'd still be able to talk about what that would look like, but it would not be an open bidding process, but more of discussions that would lead to an offer. And anything with class 1, we would not accept unsolicited offers. That would immediately go to our realtor of record, sign on the property, period of time, collect various different bids, and then choose a winning one if we're so inclined. I just wanted to make sure that we were all reminded of that difference.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Grant. Is there anything else with respect to this piece of property? Seeing none, I don't think there's a lot of resistance to keep it, Mike, if there's no purpose for it, so. Dave, do you have something else? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, worship. So through you, your worship, Michael, just thinking like on its own is not developable. But if it's merged with a neighbor property, then the zoning up there is all industrial. So really basically, and then with that water course separating it, it's probably only valid to the property that's to the south, if you will, which is that house, which is non-conforming. So this is a really tough piece of property to talk about and stuff, so.
Yeah, so through your worship, the water course being there, it's not a navigable water course, so therefore it's not deemed by registry as a intervening ownership. So it could go to either the north or the south parcel. If it went to the property to the south, it would, yes, enlarge their land holding. They wouldn't be able to expand their non-conforming residential use, but they could demolish and reconstruct an industrial use. There's the possibility there.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I guess maybe I misspoke when I said about the water course. I was just thinking like, nobody's gonna be able to fill that in, right? That sort of thing. So sorry for misspeaking there. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's unlikely. It's mapped as a water course, but the Conservation Authority understands it used to be a farm drainage ditch. So they wouldn't have opposition to, if there's a need to traverse from north to south, for example, across that long edge of the triangle, they could permit a culvert to be installed for access if need be over that water course, have to be properly sized and the like. But I do see it being potential benefit for either property north and or south. So again, just the property to the south would need to cease the residential use and establish an industrial use if they were to do anything in that property.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Thanks, Michael. Is there anything else? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next one.
So this is property associated with the former bridge abutment to the Woods Lane Bridge up in Roblin from years and years ago. The town removed the bridge quite a number of years ago and then constructed Woods Lane to provide access to the property that you can see on the south edge of this image. We still continue to own this parcel of land that contains the bridge abutment. We don't foresee ever putting a bridge back in there at this point in time. Staff have reviewed, we really don't foresee a need for this small parcel. I believe we've identified this as a class 2 property. It's not able to be developed independently. It really is only beneficial as a lot addition to a neighbor, given it's so constrained and small in size. There's really not a lot that can be done with this property ultimately. The water, the river, the Salmon River is right there. It's almost pushing all the setbacks to the north edge. There's really no room on this property to do anything with it, unfortunately. So it's a class 2 property from staff's perspective, and we really don't have any dire need for it.
Thanks, Michael. Any questions or comments? I think it's pretty straightforward. We'll probably we'll surplus that one as well, I think so. Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll move on to the next one.
Here's another class 2 property. So this is a landlocked property abutting the rear lot line of 7588 County Road 2. So this property would, I believe it abuts 2 or 3 parcels. I don't have the parcel fabric in front of me right now, but it's a landlocked property. How we came into owning this, I'm not sure. I've tracked down why this even exists as a separate parcel in the first place. I assumed it might have been a cemetery, but there's been no evidence that we've been able to find that there's any cemetery there. It's just, unfortunately, we own this landlocked piece of property, and staff would recommend that we no longer own it.
I think you might be right, Mike. Is there any questions or comments on this piece of property? Go ahead, Ange.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Michael, if it abuts up to 3 properties, and I'm just curious about process here. Do we knock on each door and say, here it is, and there's this much abutting on each of yours? Can it then be split into 3? Or does one guy get to buy it, or can 2 buy it and split it down the middle? How does this work?
I'll defer to the clerk. The clerk has it more fresh in her mind from the land sale bylaw.
So through your worship, our land sale bylaw says for class 2, we follow to the extent reasonably possible the process set out in the new road allowance sale policy. And that states that if one person approaches the town, we are obligated to make the offer available to anybody else with an interest who's got abutting land. They can decide amongst themselves if they would like to split costs evenly, and that would include needing a survey done to redraw the boundary lines. And if not, whoever the interested parties are at the end of the day, the town will sell to, as long as it creates something that can be created. And if only one party is interested, they get the whole thing. That's how we do it for road allowances. That's how we would do it to the extent that it would make sense for one of these lots.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thanks, Councillor Hicks. Is there anything else? Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Worship, I just am checking parcel fabric. It only abuts 2 properties. Yeah, so it'd be an easy split between the 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ange. Is there anything further? If not, we'll move on to the next one. I'm pretty sure we're not going to need that one.
Okay, so this property is on Hambley Road. This is essentially midway between County Road 9 on Hambley Road. On the north side, there is a substantial amount of wetland on this property at the north, throughout the north portion of the property, as you can tell. However, there is a small sliver of potentially developable land that's zoned rural on this property. It's very constrained, but there is the possibility that a house could go there. Getting a well, septic system, and a house in there is going to be quite a challenge. How we came to own this property, I'm unsure. I think this one was a tax sale property, if my memory is correct. But staff believe we don't have a true need for this, given that it's so substantially constrained, and we'll be looking for any feedback that council might have.
Thanks, Mike. I'm hearing that it's probably best to surplus it and sell it. So is there any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Bill.
Mike, was that near the old dump?
I'm unfamiliar. I've heard about the old dump. I'm unfamiliar exactly where it was though.
It, it just seems to me, because I remember where the dump was, a landfill, and I think that's close, but I'm not 100% sure that I'd just be concerned about what's under it. That's all.
Through your worship, was it on the south side of Hambley or north side? North side? Just give me one minute.
Yep. No, take your time, Mike. I mean, obviously, before we sell anything, we'll tidy these things up, I would think, Mike.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we would, uh, in this instance, it might be worth us contacting our environmental consultant to do a little bit of background to determine where exactly that landfill or operation might have been relative to this, just to make sure there's no issue from a change of use perspective. If there were any landfilling operations on this property, it's best that we know before we list it. But I had heard of the dump on Hambley Road, but my understanding was that it wasn't specifically here, given the wetland. And I think it was further, not specifically, I think it was further east or west of this property specifically.
I think, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I just, my memory isn't, because I wasn't, it was either late 50s or very early 60s when I remember this. And it used to be known as Dump Road, actually, before it was called Hambley Road. So it just, in my years ago memory, it seems close, that's all.
Through worship, I do have access to some older aerial imagery, some from the 50s, actually. So I'll start there and see where that lands relative to this property.
Yeah, I think it sounds like maybe there's no will to keep this piece of property, Michael, and no use for it, but I think we need to put an asterisk beside it just to, so that we all can sleep well at night knowing it's not got a dump under it. Well, I'm sure Michael will do some more homework on it. So, but I don't see any purpose of us keeping it if, if it's good. So, nope. If there's nothing else, we'll move on to the next one.
So this next property is at the south limit of Lower Sarah Street, so the northerly end of Sarah Street, the south end of that portion of Sarah Street. So this property has been owned by the municipality for a number of years and was acquired through vesting through tax sale back when it was initially acquired. This is an independently developable property today. The town owns a right-of-way immediately on the north side of this property that terminates east of the most eastern property line. So essentially, I'll say in between the houses that run north-south on Alfred and Sarah Street, we own a right-of-way that extends to that point approximately. And there's another landlocked parcel abutting our parcel to the east, if council can imagine that. So this property, though, could be serviced by a very small extension of water and sewer and a very minor extension of Sarah Street further to the south to give access to kind of sneak into the northwest corner of this property. So we see this as a class 1 property. as it could be independently developed, and it's zoned residential type 1, very large, older lot from back when this subdivision was initially developed. And but staff really don't foresee the need for it. It's just been vacant, idle lands for many years, and has always been truly unused, if you will. So staff recommend that it be surplused and believe there would be some good value in that.
Great. I think I agree with you. Mike, is there any, go ahead, Councillor X.
Thank you, Worship. If my memory serves me correctly, not that long ago, we did receive an unsolicited bid for this. Okay, so when we list this with an agent, are we going to make the provision for the road allowance? Like, are we going to do any work ahead of time to make this even more attractive to somebody buying it?
Through worship, it'd be a decision of council. I would say prior to expending the monies, it might be premature just to sink some capital in that we might not immediately see back. Again, it's council's decision, but I would say it's probably mostly more beneficial to commit to the municipality undertaking those works, you know, as a condition of purchase and sale.
It wasn't so much extending sewer and water or anything like that, but just any other, I'll say the paperwork that needed to be done to like clean up the extension running south at the north end, which is weird looking at it, and then the road allowance as well, or at least confirming to potential buyers that there will be no issues with that moving forward.
Yeah, staff would recommend, and it's similar to the approach we've been taking with the industrial lands, is committing that there will be these services and roads, you know, for your use. Might just be a quite a capital outlay without the funds coming in to reimburse our efforts effectively. So.
Yep, go ahead, Mike.
What is a lot worth? You know what I mean? So if I have to put that much more into it, but if I go ahead and do the services and everything else for it, therefore my lot's going to be that much less. All right. So why put money out where the guy's going to buy it? So you have two options. We do it, it's going to be so much. You do it, it's going to be this. So whatever's the best bang for the buck for the municipality, that's the route you go.
No, I agree. And like I said, I don't see any use for it in the foreseeable future. So I would suggest if it hasn't been surpluses, we probably should. So is there any other questions or comments with respect to this piece of property? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next one.
Perhaps in maybe 10, 15 minutes, just take a short recess.
Yep, we can take a break. We'll take a 10-minute break then. Yeah, sure.
Do that now or after
Yep.
this one?
We'll do that now, Mike, and we'll come back. Give us about 10 minutes, folks, and we'll come back and we'll finish up a bunch of these things. So thanks. Great. Welcome back, everyone. Sorry for the indulgence, but whenever you're ready, Michael, if you want to continue on with the next piece of property.
Thank you, Worship. The next property is a very small, undersized property between 2664 and 2648 Switzerville Road. This property does not meet the minimum size for development in the rural area. Our zoning bylaw does recognize existing undersized lots that might be undersized from the current day zoning standards, meaning giving some recognition to these older lots. We do provide a cutoff as to a bare minimum size in those instances, and this does not meet that. And the bare minimum size is really to accommodate a well, a septic system, and a modest size house. This doesn't meet that minimum threshold, so would not be able to be developed independently. So staff are identifying this as a Class 2 property, and we really do not foresee any need for this within the town's landholding.
Great. Thanks, Michael. Any questions or comments with respect to this piece of property here? Seeing none, and I'm sensing that there's no thoughts about keeping it, so I think we could probably put it on the list as well.
Moving on, this is an interesting parcel. This is at the southerly end of Shorey Road and abuts the 401 abutting to the south. So this is at the very limit of the municipality's east side. So on the east side of Shorey Road is Loyalist Township, and on the west side is Napanee. This property, I don't know how we came into ownership of it, but there is no developed road to the property. Obviously, there are no services, but staff see the potential for this, much like you see along the highway going east, cell tower. There's a possibility of a potential cell tower going in on this property. I really can't foresee anybody buying it to put a house on. I really don't know who would buy this other than a telecommunications company to put in a tower of some sort. So staff are wondering council's thoughts on this. It's really just forested rural land. There's no road. There's no hydro. There's really nothing to it. But it does have frontage on an unopened section of the Shorey road allowance. So Shorey Road could be extended. Be quite a cost for minimal return. But yeah, again, just looking for any thoughts that council might have on this.
Council? Any thoughts?
No, it's a mix of prime ag designation and rural zoning today. It's unlikely to be continuing prime ag though.
Is the inevitable expansion of the 401, does that affect this at all, Mike?
I don't believe so. What the MTOs hinted at us is that the widening is going to be taking place within the existing owned right of way. So they'd be kind of coming inwards, especially in this area. You can see that the lanes are quite spaced far apart rather than as it continues further east. So they do have a lot of ability to add a lane on each, eastbound, westbound on the inward side of the highway. Yeah, they haven't indicated whether they're looking for purchasing property or not. My understanding is they're not at this point in time.
Yep, go ahead, Mike.
There's a possibility that would necessitate a hydro extension, most certainly. Hydro just stops essentially where you see that house, so it'd be quite an extension of hydro in there, but that is a possibility.
Only reason why is when you go to Brighton, I know a farmer owns that property that has those 5 or 6 signs. He makes more on that than he does on the whole property. So I was just thinking, if we're going to keep it in the cell tower, and if the cell tower doesn't come in, there's a potential source of revenue there that if we could possibly, put up some type of sign, especially it's going into towards Napanee, whatever.
Yeah, it is an interesting piece of property just because of the exposure on the 401, right? I'm not so certain that we would have any real purpose other than leasing it, I suppose, but, um, I mean, it's got to have some value to it, I would think, just with the exposure. Go ahead, Ange.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So can you put out a Dear Rogers, Dear Telus, Dear Bell? We have this piece of property if you're interested. I mean, can you solicit them
I-
with the property? Is that possible?
Through your worship, I think that's possible. I think we could, I guess this shouldn't be on the recommended surplus list. This is something that I think might be worth, doing a lease, for example, with Rogers or other, or a lease with a company for a sign. It was more just around, I guess I should have had this on the for discussion properties, but we really have, there's some options that we could use this property for, given the exposure on the 401, I think. MTO obviously controls, development within certain setbacks of the limits of the right of way. I believe they have, some flexibility on installation of signs in some instances. So obviously at all the en routes, there's the new signs. I'm not sure how they would view another sign here relative to where the other en routes are. It's hard to say. But I think a tower would certainly be something that'd be supportable by the MTO, especially if it's in, I'll say, the northeast corner, as far away from the highway as it could possibly be. It would really give a lot of potential coverage for travelers on the highway there, especially as you're getting east in towards Odessa. There's that dead zone that you always go through, so that there might be an opportunity there, I think.
Yeah, and then that's, thanks, Ange. That's what I'm thinking is that, sorry, go ahead, Bill.
Thank you, man. Michael, does that front on the unopen portion of Shorey Road there?
Yes, through worship. Shorey Road goes all the way down to the
Well,
401.
it connects to Swittsville Road, Shorey Road, right? On open portion?
Just one moment. I think it
Right on
does
that S
southerly.
portion of Swittsville Road?
I think you brought-
Through your worship, yes, it does. It's in line with that immediate north and then east section.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. I'm just trying to, I missed that when I was doing some of my homework this week, so, but I didn't realize where it was, but now I'm realizing exactly where it is.
I think you, if there's nothing else, I think you might be right, Mike. It might be better suited for further discussion at a later date kind of thing, as opposed to the surplusing, but that's just the sense I'm getting. Am I correct there? Yeah, so maybe rather surplusing that one, we'll put it on the list for further discussion. I think it's worth the value to dig into it a little bit further, maybe.
Yep. Yeah, my intention was to put it on the second list that we're going to talk about today, which is a much shorter list. But I think I had it initially on as surplus, then changed my mind, but forgot to move it over here. So, yeah, no, I don't think it's worth surplusing yet. I think there's more potential that can be explored with this property.
Yep, great. Thanks, Mike. I think that's what the consensus is here as well. So if there's nothing else, we'll move on to the next one.
So this property is at the eastern limit of Knoxon Road. This is not a parcel that is independently developable given its size. Why we own such a, I'll say a long turnaround here is beyond me. I'm not sure exactly why. Staff would view this parcel as a Class 2 parcel, but we would like to explore, almost cutting it in half to keep our turnaround intact there. Why the parcel extends throughout that turnaround is unclear, but we don't foresee the need for owning the entirety of that property. It could be sold and merged with a neighboring property to make development of their lands more viable in the future. So looking for any thoughts from council on this property.
Yep, go ahead, Mike.
Is there any water access to that trench cut that's on the east side of it? So the right side.
So
That was the old,
does the town have access through there?
well, that was an old swimming hole that was off the R60 subdivision that was developed earlier. And if you look down, there was a trench cut that the kids and I did just a couple of years ago. Used to swim there. So all I'm saying is if it has water access, I always want to keep it. But if it doesn't, then
I'm going to just pull up parcel fabric here.
Thanks, Mike. And that, I was thinking along the same lines as you. Maybe that's why it's there. There was maybe some type of access to the water at one point, but Mike's gonna see if he can sort it out.
Sorry, here's the parcel fabric in the area. Knoxon Road ends here. Then we have this parcel that we're talking about right there. And private ownership between Knoxon Road and the water, unfortunately. So what staff would foresee kind of cutting off the municipal ownership around more or less midway through this property. It seems that really only would benefit this property here. It's quite a strange lot configuration if that were to be, this chunk were added over to this property. But we can sort that out later on. It's more just a concept of, do we need this entire property or not? Staff don't believe we do.
Yep, but I think that's sort of the consensus, Mike, is that we surplus it, and as long as you keep enough of it for that turnaround, I think we'll all be good with it. So, is there anything else with respect to this piece? If not, we'll move on to the next one. Seeing none, go ahead, Mike.
Thank you, Worship. And much like the former property, this was intended to go on the for discussion properties rather than the recommending surplus right away properties. This is a property on Bayview Drive, and the next property is another lot on Bayview Drive that the town owns. Staff need to look into the history of title with these properties a little bit more. We're aware of claims from some of the area residents that they have deeded access in some form or another, and we need to substantiate those claims. But by and large, this lot configuration is the exact lot configuration of every other property along this road. But how the town came into ownership of this property and the next one that we'll look at is unclear on the face of it, and we need to dig into title a little bit more. So this is a for discussion, but would like to hear council's thoughts on sale of waterfront lots. So this is not a waterfront road allowance that leads to water. This is municipally owned land that is abutting the water. There's no park there. It's really just idle land that the Parks and Rec Department cuts on a routine schedule. But staff see it as underutilized land that the municipality owns today, and wondering council's thoughts on what could be done with this.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Go ahead, Mike.
So this subdivision was done with those keyed lot configurations. So everybody had the water access, somebody had bigger, you know what I mean? So when the subdivision was done, there was always the claim that certain lots were supposed to be deeded access. All right, that's what they claim, but we've never proven it. So you're going to find that out through the registry office. And you already have just not even how many feet further up, you already have a boat ramp. All right. So we'll find out who owns it, who doesn't own it, or whether it's true or not. And then it should all show at the registry office, and then we can make a decision from there.
Yeah, and just to clarify, this is a class 1 piece of property. It's definitely a piece of property that can be developed to have a house put onto it. And
Absolutely, yeah, Your Worship.
Septic
These
wells.
this property and the next one, similar shape, just a little further west. Both class 1 properties, both can be independently developed. Both very, the zoning in this area reflects the reduced road frontage and some site-specific parameters that would allow this to be developed today. So yes, class 1 property.
Yeah, thanks. Go ahead, Ange.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, my question, Chris, when we have parks out there cutting this property, has there ever been any sign that the property's being used by anybody? Or is it just you're going unloading the mower, cutting grass, leaving? And the grass is 6 inches taller, 3 inches taller when you go back the next time, but nobody's been there?
So through your worship, so this property and the next one, those key lot ones, they're being maintained by neighboring property owners. So the Parks Department is maintaining the boat launch down the road, and there are another few properties that we own and maintain, but this one in particular is not one of those. The maintenance is being done by those property owners that are neighboring.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to really make sure when we do our homework that this isn't an issue. I have a vague recollection from 35 years ago or so. Okay, 10, Mike says 10 years, so it'll make me feel younger. That the purpose of the boat launch was, and the park and the playground and that whole thing was the water access for that subdivision. So, yeah, I would say investigate and sell. Because if it goes into a reserve, that's less money you're paying as a taxpayer. So that's my philosophy on that.
Yep, go ahead, Mr. Grant.
Sure. Just before CEO speaks, I just wanted to clarify. If it's determined that these were intended to be dedicated at the time to the town for parkland, we would have to put it in. If we're effectively selling parkland, we would have to put that into a parkland specific reserve that is only used for either purchasing new parkland or replacing equipment, adding new equipment solely around parkland. It wouldn't be able to be used for general town reserve use. So that's what we'll clarify through title is the access, the conveyance mechanism, why we have it. Was it maybe it's vesting in a tax sale and it's just so old it's hard to tell. We'll find that out and report back to council. But I think I'm getting the sense that if it's more or less free and clear, council sounds like there might be the appetite to sell. Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
Before that appetite is consumed, is that find out who owns it, because a lot of the interior lots on the Bayview subdivision on the other side where Bob Hamilton and some of the other ones were living at years ago, that was deeded access for those developers for the interior lots. That's what I was always told. Now, whether it's true or not, I don't know, but find out exactly what it is, because if somebody says it has it on their deed, then we're in a whole different ball game here. So just one step, then we'll go to the next step.
Yeah, and I think that's why Mike wanted to put this on for the discussion is that it obviously needs a little more work to it. But I mean, obviously we own it, it's in our name, but how we come to acquire it is probably somewhat questionable, but Mike will do some more homework on it, but go ahead, Ange, and then I'll go to Mr. Grant.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, because the standard lots like across the road, right, that are on Bayview as well, and then the lots that back onto those that are on Sherman's Point Road. I don't know if the Sherman's Point Road lots would apply necessarily, but I'm thinking, yeah, the Bayview ones. So it's.
It was listed 2008, the next one.
Was that?
Yeah, so that's
okay.
what I'm saying.
Okay.
The only reason why I feel that nobody really, but this is only assuming, you know what assume means. So, but when you go down here through your previous listed surplus, that Bayview Drive waterfront lot, it was listed in 2008. So you would have definitely heard something if they were going to sell it. All right. And it was deemed surplus back then. But all I'm saying is you know what assume means. So let's do our due diligence and find the homework first.
Yeah, I think everybody's on the same page with that though, but thanks, Mike. And I'm sure Michael will get to the end of it. So Mr. Grant, go ahead.
Sure, and thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. And I think it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. As we're going through due diligence, we'll do our utmost to clarify what is documented evidence of history of a piece of property and what would fall into maybe neighborhood lore sort of commentary. And we'll do our best to make sure that we can differentiate that for you. And any recommendations that we have, my perspective would be it's based on legal documentation that we've been able to obtain.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Mr. Grant. Is there any other comments or questions with respect to both this keyed lot and the next one, which I think we've already talked about? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next one then, Mike.
And here's the next one, similar configuration, just in a slightly different location along this stretch of Bayview Road. So we'll be reviewing this and the other in conjunction.
Thanks, Mike. And we'll move on to the next one then.
So this is an interesting parcel. This is on County Road 8. So this is just west of 3216 County Road 8. This image was taken in 2019 when we had the extremely high water. You can see, unfortunately, the property to the east was more or less, they had water up to their foundation. This property is extremely encumbered by the floodplain. There's wetland. Why we own it, again, it's unclear. I initially thought there might have been a cemetery here, but from what I've been able to gather with our cemetery staff and searching back through old survey plans, it seems there is not a cemetery on this property that we are aware of. There is one further to the west that's just off page here. And that's, if you drive down County Road 8 and look onto the south side around here, you would definitely see that cemetery. I don't believe there's anything here. There is just a substantial amount of water covering this property, and I'm not sure who would want to buy it, but it's definitely not an independently developable property, and could be used as an addition for a neighbor just for their purposes. So I don't think there's any benefit for the municipality to continue to own this. It's possible that, given this is a county road, that the county may wish to purchase it, given that their culverts are essentially at the southeast corner of this property coming in to convey waters under County Road 8. So we can certainly talk to the county to see if they have any interest in the neighboring property owners, but staff don't see any need for this.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Any comments? Go ahead, Mike.
So that used to be the old post office years ago, 100, 200 years ago. And further up, it used to be the courthouse and municipality at one time. That was, that's what happened there. But it's only a third of an acre, and half of that is actually fairly high, would be above the floodplain. All right, but below, but where you can see where the tree line isn't so high. And I know the neighbors cut it right there and they use it as, but I didn't know that the municipality still owned it, but I knew that there was a post office at one time, supposedly there.
Yeah.
That looked after that whole area.
Yeah, this property is zoned entirely EP. It's just fully EP with both the PSW to the north and the floodplain all around. It's, yeah, not a great property.
No, is there any further questions or comments? If not, I think you see our direction on that one as well, Mike. So if not, we'll move on to the next one.
This is another mystery of a property. Impact did not know we owned it. However, I was able to discern that we do own it through Terranet in the multitude of searches that we ran. I think it's either best suited for the county or the property owner immediately to the south may have interest in it. We have no land in this, abutting this, other than the common road allowance between the town of Greater Napanee and Stone Mills to the east, but it's not part of the road allowance. It's just a vacant remnant oddity of a parcel that's been left over for quite some time.
Yeah, I think it's safe to assume we could probably surplus that one. If there's no further comments or questions with respect to that, we'll move on to the next one.
So this property is immediately behind 27 Yeoman Street, and it looks like quite a constrained property, but it would have the ability to build a modest size house on, 2-story to meet the minimum size under the zoning bylaw. Has enough frontage, there's services, it meets the bare minimum size for the zone that it's in. The pie shape to the lot makes it a little bit tricky to squeak a house in there, but there would be a building envelope in there with a creatively laid out house. So staff don't see a need for this from a public works perspective. We just push the snow up to the end of I believe that's Henry Street, and just back out, turn around, and leave. We really don't see the need to continue owning this. I believe this parcel is a remnant parcel from a number of staged road closures from old plans of subdivision within this area that just never got conveyed and remained in the municipality's ownership. So it's really not part of any road network now. We don't have services running through it. There is you can see the hydro lines clipped in the corner there, but they would be well outside the potential future house on this lot. So I view it as a class 1 property. It depending on who purchases it, they may or may not be able to site a house in there or fit a house in there, but it could be done. It certainly could be done. So it's possible that the neighbor wants to buy it just to keep their property large, because it seems like they're maintaining it, but it's an independently conveyable piece of property today.
Okay, any questions with respect to that one? Yep, go ahead, Ange.
Through you, Your Worship. Is the property adjoining it, is that a duplex?
Through your worship, I am not 100% certain.
It looks like it has like 2 driveways, and just when you look at the roof line of the house, it almost looks like they're, yeah. Oh, it's split. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Okay, is there anything else? Seeing none, I'm sensing that it could probably go on the surplus list as well, Michael.
Okay, moving on. This is in the same general vicinity. So this is immediately east of 40 Yeoman Street. So what we have, so immediately to the west is the golf course subdivision that most are aware of, that has been serviced. On the very south side of this property, there's a water main that connects from the golf course subdivision, goes through this property and connects into the end of Yeoman Street, which provides better looping for water in the area. So we would need to, council wishes to surplus this. We'd need to retain a 5-meter wide easement for that water infrastructure for us to be able to get in and dig it up and do any repairs in the future as required. So staff wouldn't look to surplus the entirety of this property, but we would look to kind of cut that triangle off and shift I'll say the east lot line a little further west to give us a decent turnaround and still leave a viable sized parcel to put a house in. There would be a need for some servicing extension, but the road is predominantly there. We're able to turn around today. It's just we'd want to retain that ownership for us to be able to turn around within our own property. But there is a potentially viable building lot there. So looking for any comments, questions from council. I would note too, the golf course subdivision on what would be the south end of that on this screen. There are 2 townhouse blocks that are planned and substantial noise mitigation fencing that would be put up. So this property, yes, it's very close to the CN rail line, but with time through development of that golf course subdivision, that sound attenuating measure would ultimately have some benefit for this property as well.
Go ahead, Mike.
So my question is, Mike, is that it's only 1/5 of an acre. So when you take 1/5 of the acre, take a 5-meter water, and it's at the end where you're going to need to turn around anyway. So wouldn't it be better? And then you're running your loop through that. So it gives you more access in case something breaks or whatever, that you've got more land to park your machinery or whatever. And it looks like the property line goes right through his driveway and partly through his shed too.
Yeah, this property line is shifted. The aerial imagery underneath the actual fabric is just shifted. It's not there. It's further south. Yeah.
So do you think we should take a little bit another look and just say maybe we should just keep it, because it's only 1/5 of the acre, and by the time you take your put your cul-de-sac at the end of it and take your 5 minute or, easement through it. And when you consider such a heavy development further up, there might be like a junction area where the public utilities might need. I'm just wondering if maybe we should keep it just for now. I'm just, you know what I mean? It's up to you. They're just my thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Go ahead, Dave.
Thank you, Worship, through you. Michael, for the development on the other side of the tracks, are we still planning on going underneath the tracks with sewer? And is it in this area or is it down off of Yeoman's?
It's further north here. So it's, if you can see where that car is, on the east side, right at the bend, it's around there. So water and sewer would go under the tracks and tie in, approximately there. But no above grade infrastructure other than a valve, that we would need to turn. Like there's no booster station there or pump station right there, for example. It's just underground infrastructure. The water main that runs through this property, there would also be another property of actually smaller width to the west of this in that golf course subdivision. So there is the ability to put a house on the golf course subdivision parcel fabric, which is not as wide as this property, and still that water main is running through that property as well. So I think there's the ability to put a house in here, just based on it working for the golf course lands. I mean, a house can go right up to the limit of the easement. They don't need to be set back from the easement, so they can go right up to the limit of the easement. The pipe is further set back outside of the limit of the easement as well. So although we're taking a certain width, the actual pipe would be in the middle of that. So we're not digging up right to the edge of it. There's ability for staff to pile dirt as we need to dig up the water main. So I'll look at it in more detail and bring a final recommendation back to council, but just looking for some initial thoughts on this before doing so.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Thank you, Worship, through you. You know, there's not too many in town lots for sale, so I could see that this would be sold pretty quickly if you feel that the house would still fit with all the explanation that you just said. So I think that I would enjoy to see what you come back with on that. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, is there anything else? Go ahead, Mike.
So this lot, you're going to look into it further to see if not, when I heard what Dave had to say, that if we don't need it, and I can't see this being at the end of the thing where it possibly could, unless public utilities needs it, then it's got,
Yeah, through your worship. I mean, we're not declaring anything surplus today. This is just for me to hear council's thoughts to help inform my final recommendation on July 22nd.
Yeah, and I think you're in the right area, Mike. Take a look at it, and I think if you're comfortable with the fact that, it's definitely a lot that can be built on, and we're not it's of no use to the municipality, then yeah, we'll surplus it. But obviously, you're going to do a little more work on it, and we appreciate that. So, is there anything else? If not, we'll move on to the next one.
So this is the last one on this first presentation, and then after this we'll jump into right into the other one. So this is a piece of property that was dedicated to the town a number of years ago, and it seemed as though it was intended for a road allowance. It was never declared a road. There was never a bylaw passed. It was just shown as a part on a survey plan and was given to the municipality with the assumption that there might need to be a road built there in the future, possibly. Staff don't see a need for this. This terminates to the east at private ownership. Like it doesn't connect with other town ownership at all. We don't have any infrastructure in the ground there. There's really no need for it from staff's perspective. Wondering council's thoughts on this piece of property. If it's helpful, I can pull up parcel fabric just to to give you a sense of what's in the area and where that private ownership starts. It might be beneficial. I think I'll do that actually, just to help inform the discussion on this property as well.
Thanks, Mike. Looks remarkably like a disc golf piece of property to me, but I could be wrong. Or a road to it is quite a peculiar piece of property. There's no doubt about that.
So it's just going to load here and I'll show council where this property is. Okay, so if you can see my mouse on the screen, here is this property that we're looking at, and it abuts private ownership, on the east side. This is an unopened municipal road allowance that runs north-south. So if I zoom out, I lose the fabric, but it runs up to Goodyear Road here, and the road allowance runs down further south here and across to the east. If you can kind of see this, but this one to the east just dead ends. And this one to the south runs into the 401. So this property, why the municipality would need another road here? It would make such a small block of industrially developed land. So I really don't foresee the need to build a road into this in the future. But wondering council's thoughts, see if there's anything that I might be missing here. And sorry, I would add this too. So when privately owned lands are developed, if there is an internal road network that is all tied to one piece of property, so meaning one large property has an internal road and they have multiple buildings on it, well, it's not a municipal road. It'd be a privately owned road. If it were a plan of subdivision, then it would become a municipally owned road. So for example, this large property here, if it were developed with, a plan of subdivision, there may be the possibility to have, some looping of access back down to Van Leuven Road. Why we would need to cut back out, at this location is I don't understand. So I don't know what the train of thought was back when the municipality took this property, but it's not like the municipality would really need to build this road to nowhere for the foreseeable future. It would, if anything, development of the parcels in this area would be brought on by those developers, and the costs would be borne by them. And any future roads that go along with it may be just dedicated to the municipality, essentially at no cost. So I don't see a need for this, but curious of council's thoughts.
Yeah, go ahead, Anne.
Thank you, Your Worship. Are we planning on another discussion to deal with unopened road allowances, like to look at that? These are parcels that can be sold, either offered to a neighbor based on class 2 or sold commercially as class 1, right? So this is, I don't know.
And this isn't a road allowance.
It's
too.
not a road allowance.
No, it looks
Oh.
like a road allowance, but it's not. It was
It's just
never.
this very weird,
It's just a strange
Okay.
parcel that has the shape of a road.
the road allowance is what's running north and south.
Correct. The road
Okay.
allowances themselves run north, south, and then
Okay.
east, west that you can see on the screen here. This is not a road allowance.
And is the same, is the property to the north and south owned by the same person?
Correct. It is.
Sell it.
You asked the question I was going to answer, and that makes the decision a little easier if the same person owns on both sides.
They were probably scratching their head too.
I would, I would note too, this, if you can see my mouse here, this property, would have some right to ask for a portion of that parcel as well. Whether they have any interest, it's hard to tell. And same with this parcel, vacant parcel to the south here. I mean, they already have substantial frontage on Kimmett's Side Road. It's unlikely that they're going to need any more, and it would just result in an odd sort of fabric to their property. So yeah, by itself, it's not, you you wouldn't be able to develop this parcel as it's configured today. It's really only beneficial to neighboring properties.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
So my question is I'm just trying to decipher why that was actually ever put in there. So if the guy in the north and the guy in the south owns the exact same piece of property, all right, and when he purchased that, and then he went ahead and had, because it's a different roll number, it's automatic to 2 severances. As soon as you go ahead and deem it surplus, now does that once severed, always severed? It's not like it used to be, that it was, they probably got away around a severance that way. So they couldn't sever it. So automatically you go ahead and you put a lot through there saying you convinced the planner at the time that you needed a road. All right. And then all of a sudden you got your 2 severances. There you go. That's
Yeah. I'm not sure of the history of it, but I don't know that it would have been that, to be honest, because the reference plan that's cited for this property contained a number of other properties all around it. So it wasn't just, bisecting one instrument. It would seem like there was some thought to it. But why this is in such close proximity to this intersection, I don't understand. It would, maybe there was some more benefit to put it midway through the block between Goodyear Road and Van Leuven. Why it's favored down to Van Leuven, I don't know.
Thanks, Michael. Is there any other thoughts with respect to this piece of property? I'm sensing probably surplus it, but that's, I think, the direction that most are thinking anyway. If there's nothing else, we'll move on to the next one.
So that is it for this list. I'm just going to jump over to the next presentation. Sorry, thanks for jogging my memory. Suttard was last on the list here. It was out of order with the Excel, but is last in this presentation. So this is the former Suttard subdivision boundaries, approximately. Not survey grade, but it's very representative of the ownership that the municipality has. On the Excel list in front of council, it's identifying each property of the subdivision as separate rolls and pins. There was really, oh, thank you, Matthew, for the note. I thought I was sharing this. See if this shows up. There we go. So this is the former Suttard subdivision lands in the red outline. Access from Kraus Street, Camden Road, and Newburgh Road. Ample opportunities for accessing this property. We have water and sewer on Camden Road and Newburgh Road. So there's easy extension of water and sewer into the interior of this property. This is quite a land holding. This is about, I want to say, a total of around 14 acres or so in total. If you were to add up all of the separate roll numbers on the Excel sheet, it totals about 11. But when you add back in the road allowances that aren't identified as rolls, it totals about 3 acres or so. So it's about 14 acres of land. Staff would recommend that this be sold as one property. And I believe we would get the best value for the dollar, because this would be more viable for a subdivision developer, for example, to purchase a larger landholding than multiple smaller parcels. So I believe this has been discussed at council a number of times. Staff believe this is an item that that would be a worthy piece of property to put on the surplus list, and staff are happy to have any discussion with council.
Any questions or comments with respect to this piece of property? Councillor Hicks.
Well, I'm definitely in favor of selling it, but just how did we come to own this? Was this somebody defaulted or?
Yep. So
That's- Okay.
through your worship, so this was registered, these were registered lots on a plan of subdivision that was, I believe was a pre-amalgamation approval. The developer, of the time just walked away, and it was a failed tax sale, so the municipality took it under their ownership, and deemed the subdivision to no longer be a plan of subdivision on title. So therefore, the lots are effectively erased from title. Although if you were to look at parcel fabric, it looks like they all still exist. They don't. Staff would go through a PIN consolidation exercise to reflect the deeming of the plan of subdivision to be no longer, to put the true property ownership into this shape that we see on the screen, rather than multiple different smaller pieces that used to exist back prior to amalgamation. So I believe it was a failed tax sale, and it was all subdivision lands, and therefore is now one piece of property essentially.
Yep, go ahead.
So, because I'm getting educated here. So a total of 14 acres. And how many, I know you don't know exact numbers, but approximately how many single family or semi-detached, or like, is this enough property to actually give somebody?
Oh,
Some-
very much so. Yeah.
Okay.
To give you an accurate unit count, it'd be tough. The Millhouse Yard subdivision to the south is a comparable size, for example. Yeah, not exactly, but very similar. Yeah, and the 401 there is below grade. You'd be surprised. You can almost walk right up to the edge and you don't even hear it. It's very strange. Yeah, with it being below the rock cut there, it very much shields the noise impact.
Well, and it's almost like infill. When I look at this, I think of infill, and it's not taking up agricultural property. You're not cutting down tree. It's already basically a barren piece of land, right?
That's correct. We do need to do a little bit more investigation with Conservation Authority, just given that the land's been sitting for so long. There are some wet areas here. So there may be some wetland, property or portions of the property exhibiting traits of wetland. So we need to look into that a little bit more prior to listing it, but ultimately staff would recommend that this be surplused.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Calvert.
Thank you, through your worship, to Michael. Is there any height restriction if somebody was to buy this and develop it and want to put apartments on there? Is there any height restrictions there?
This is a mix of, I don't have my list in front of me. It's a mixture of residential type 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a varying array of singles, semis, townhouses, apartments. There's an apartment block that was contemplated at the north end. But yes, each zone does have a height restriction. If the purchaser wishes to, I'll say, modify the zoning fabric. So the zoning fabric follows the former plan of subdivision, and the former plan of subdivision contemplated singles, semis, apartment. If the purchaser wishes to, I would presume there's going to be a modification to the layout. They would look to get zoning approval to follow the fabric of what they would like to develop. Through that mechanism, yes, the municipality would be able to limit height based on where everything's contemplated. That would get reviewed through draft plan approval processes and zoning approval processes.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks, Brian. Go ahead, Mr. Grant.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So just for council's awareness, by way of reminder, this parcel of property was subject to an unsolicited offer that with our new bylaw would be deemed, I guess we wouldn't accept that under the new bylaw. We would put that to public sale. This parcel of property, a segment of it also has been requested by the County of Lennox and Addington, a 4 acre parcel. we, by way of reminder, that was for affordable housing. We indicated in that process that we would wait until this process had been concluded, at which point we could make suggestions of opportunities which may or may not include this parcel of land. I would say in early discussions I've had with the general manager, I would suggest that we would recommend an alternative parcel rather than this being, severed off, because as the general manager has stated, we believe its best value for members of the community who own the land is to sell it in its entirety.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Is there anything else? If there's nothing else, I think you've got a sense as to where we're heading with this piece of property. Michael?
Yes, I do, Your Worship. Thank you very much.
And now we'll move on to, for discussion, there's some half a dozen or 8 pieces of property on there for discussion. Is that where we're going next?
That is correct. So we are now into, say, the second list, where we've got a small handful of properties, and we should be able to get through these before 4 o'clock, I believe. So I'm going to speak about this property, and this property all together, as they are all separate parcels within the same geographic area. And I might actually pull up the parcel fabric again on that other map, just to give council a sense of where this is and what staff are looking into. So just give me a moment and I'll pull this back.
Yeah. And for the folks that are at home, it's the first 3 on the list for discussion, which is Advance Avenue, 57 Dairy Avenue, and 61 Dairy Avenue. I'm thinking what you're going to pull up there, Mike.
Correct. So this is at the south end of the gymnastics club and south of the fire hall on Advance Avenue. So I think we can see that now. So the first property that was shown on the presentation is this one here. So this is part of the Snow Road road allowance. This had some contemplation years ago to potentially connect into Church Street, from what I've been able to discern from old survey plans. However, this is a privately owned property, and Church Street ends at its westerly limit here, but it does extend to the south here. The town owns a parcel of land here with water infrastructure that goes through here again. And this is a privately owned piece of property that bisects these two. How that came to be years and years and years ago, I'm not sure. It's been like that ownership has been there for quite some time. Regardless, back to here, this property staff are looking into as a potential fill site for the water pollution control plant excess soils. So we know we need to get rid of excess soils, and this is a property that we're contemplating doing that on, because there could be the potential beneficial reuse of that fill to elevate the grade of this property to make it more developable, which is permissible under the excess soil regulations that the ministry has in effect. The only potential problem is there is some wetland issues, I'll say here, that we need to work through with Quinte Conservation to ultimately see the development and potential fill operation to extend into this area here. So we need a little bit more time to delineate exactly where the edges of this wetland are, determine its regulatory status and the like. But what staff have their eyes on is potentially using this as a fill site for 2 purposes. 1, to get rid of the excess soils from the wastewater plant, and 2, to provide beneficial reuse of this property and make it more marketable and more developable. The other aspect that we're looking at is relocating the medium fill station to this portion of the property down here. So 57 Dairy Avenue is owned by the municipality and this large property. Staff are investigating more or less cutting out a lot like this in shape, so fronting wholly onto Dairy Avenue, where we would have a drive in, drive around, and a drive out with the new medium fill station that would replace the Gibber's location. So we're investigating that, and we're going to be bringing that forward during the budget time. We think this is a good spot. It's not right on the main drag. It's not right beside any residences. It's on a lower traffic road. And it's near the water tower, so the pressure is fairly good in this location within the main. So we tried to find a suitable location that's as close as possible to the existing, but still achieving the relocation that needs to happen prior to the Gibbard development finishing off and ultimately constructing the trail along the Gibbard property, abutting the water. Because as that trail passes around the Gibbard property, it's going to land onto the water pollution or the water treatment plant property. And staff's vision is to use the I'll say the lower driveway around where that medium fill station is to continue the trail along westerly back to Center Street and beyond. So we don't want to have conflicting uses of pedestrians and large vehicles and trucks and trailers and the like. So we're investigating this heavily as a potential option for putting a new medium fill station here and retaining the Enviro Park lane bulk fill station. It'd be too much of a challenge that we've found to have both together at the same location, but this is seeming like a viable opportunity for us. So once we're able to discern that, and once we can get some more clarity on potential use as a fill site, once the plant project's done, I think staff would be in a better position to come back to council. This is a few years in the future, but to list the balance of this property, cutting off this chunk down here, cutting off Snow Road to retain its ownership here, but almost everything else in here that you can see would be quite a decent development site down the road if we're able to make things work within the regulations. So just want to give council the background of what staff are investigating at this point on these three properties.
Yep, I think we got some comments here. Go ahead, Mike, then I'll go to Ange.
Now, Mike, you know this better than I do, but Bill 5, doesn't that override and give you the right to go ahead and do what you want there?
Bill 5, I'd have to double check that. Yeah. There might be some nuances to it. I'd need to look into that a little bit more. I know the current day reg that's in effect still is in effect, so it hasn't been updated to follow in line with Bill 5. So if we wanted to do any fill operations in there now, the reg would need to be updated before we could do so. So more to come, but this is where staff are sort of looking at this point and what we're contemplating.
Yep, go ahead, Ange.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is all zoned as, which one am I on here? Light industrial, correct? Sorry, light industrial?
Correct. So current zoning is mostly light industrial. Light industrial, and official plan designation is business park. So we would look to zone this business park. It's more in line with this, I'll say this side of the rail line. So the former rail line. Everything further west, we're looking at going into the business park designation through the official plan update. And then everything north of Richmond Boulevard would be the lighter industrial. So where GT Machine is and the like.
So this would be like office space, retail possibly, that sort of
Yep.
thing. Okay. And if
Correct.
I'm not mistaken, this is the proposed in-town trail system that's running up on the east side of it, right?
That is correct. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ange. Is there any other questions or comments? I don't see any, Mike, but I like the way you're thinking. And I mean, obviously, we're not in a position to surplus any of these pieces of property because I do think that they all have we've got a reason to keep them at this point right now. So, and I think it's very good reason. So, and I like your thinking with respect to the medium fill water station. And if history repeats itself, I'd say we should probably have that built before we decommission the other one, because I think that would be the best thing. So I'm sure we'll have some discussions in the not too distant future with respect to that. But
Yeah, absolutely. We fully intend to make sure that that happens. I do need to give credit to Andrew Gerard and Christy Kelly on looking at this site as a potential location for relocating that medium fill station. So this project was quite timely to help kind of shed some light on that solution. So very helpful to have that perspective and for the perspective of using it as a fill site for the plant. So.
Great. No, good, good planning. So we'll move on to the next one.
So this one is at the very end of Cardiff Lane. And if it's helpful for council, I can pull up the other map to kind of zoom in and out. But this property is entirely flooded. If you can see my mouse here, there is a house right here and its ownership abuts this. And the Cardiff Lane road allowance runs all the way down here. So this property has zero development potential. It's entirely in the floodplain. It's entirely zoned environmental protection. Nobody would be able to do anything with it. The only person that could potentially purchase it would be this property owner here. The existence of the road allowance here results in an intervening ownership. So, private property owners over here wouldn't be able to buy it. Does council wish to hold on to this, just for green space, to say for any purpose? I'm just curious of what council thinks here.
Yeah, that would be my guess, Mike, is there's no sense in surplusing it or even, there's, at least as of today, there doesn't seem to be any type of purpose, and maybe in the distant future, the not too distant future, somebody may come up with something, but I don't think there's any reason to surplus it at this point, because I think we're just going to be wasting your time and then probably somebody else's. So at least that would be my opinion on it. So. So I think that's, it seems to be the direction that we would head into it. So if there's nothing else, we'll move on to the next one.
So this is another, much like the Bayview Drive properties, where staff aren't fully recommending any surplus. I just wanted to highlight this. So this is the Cherrywood Parkway trail. Now this image doesn't show it, but the newly constructed trail comes right around where my mouse is here. And there's this grassed area that's retained. The balance of the parkland is sort of over in this area beyond, and the primary access is down here where the pipeline easement is, and the playground is sort of down in this area. Staff don't see a true need to hold on to the entirety of this frontage. The trail comes out here, and that's that. We just happen to cut this grass. We see this as a potential building lot. Now, it would have been dedicated at the time as parkland contribution under the subdivision, I believe. I need to double check title on this, but I'm curious of council's thoughts on, is there any appetite to sell a building lot down here, which any proceeds would need to go into a parkland reserve to upgrade future parks, buy more parkland, et cetera. Just curious of council's thoughts.
Who wants to start first? Mr. Grant, did you want to weigh in?
So just thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through Mr. Mayor to members of council. So the one thing I would also add is funds that go to parkland dedication. We have no shortage of playgrounds that Mr. Brown has to replace, and we don't have an appropriate reserve for that. And so any contribution to a park reserve that might go towards replacing those assets would not be unwelcome.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Matthew stole my thunder. However, I would like Mr. Brown to reiterate for me the number of playgrounds, parks, parkettes that we are currently maintaining, upkeeping, upgrading. Because my thought on this is if that can be sold and that money go into a reserve to keep the parks that we have in really good working condition, with and keeping in mind for anyone that's watching, having the park and the playground, which I understand are absolutely beautiful, right there, that lawn doesn't serve any purpose except time and resources from park staff. So Chris, if you don't mind just reiterating those three: parkette, playground, and parks.
Sorry, going off memory. So I think we had something like 9 community parks, 11 neighborhood parks, and then, I think a dozen or so of the parkettes as well, or maybe even more. But I do want to touch on the playground piece. So we just had our third-party comprehensive inspections done at all of our playgrounds. And while they're still compliant with the safety standard, it was noted on over half of them that they are nearing or past their useful life in terms of age. And there are several small deficiencies that we have to correct to keep them compliant. We are nearing a point where we're going to need to replace several playgrounds, and they are not inexpensive. They start anything substantial starts at about $80,000 now. So it is something that I'm looking into the future and how we're going to be able to accomplish that. Certainly through government funding and different grants that we can apply for will be part of the discussion, but it is something to keep our eye on. Going back to the amount of parks, yes, we want to spend as much time as possible in our community parks that have playgrounds and different amenities. And when we have to cut parcels like this once every week just to keep them looking good in a neighborhood that takes good care of their lawns, it does take away. It just takes time. It just takes time and people. So if we can get rid of as many of these as possible and put money into some reserves to help with our actual parks, that would be very welcomed.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Hicks. Is there anything else? Seeing none, I'll just comment just briefly, Michael, is that I'll just be the devil's advocate just for a very, very slight moment. This is just, we have to be very cautious that we're not selling parkland, and I know that there's going to be some pressures, and the future looks very bright for us because we're going to have some community benefit funds that are coming forward that we're going to be able to help out with our playgrounds. But just to be cautious, we do have enough parks, playgrounds in this area, and even if there was to be development to the west of that, a new development would also have to provide parks and playgrounds and those types of things for those. Am I correct there?
Through your worship, yeah, that is correct. So it'd be up to the municipality to either take land, park land, or cash in lieu of parkland if there might be an oversupply of parkland in a specific area. But yes, the developer would either have to provide cash in lieu, which would go into a parkland specific reserve, or provide the physical land on the site.
Yep. Go ahead, Ange.
Just one follow-up question for Michael. When you say park reserve, does that also, would that also apply to trails? So could this money, oh, I like where this is going. So this money could also be used to help develop the in-town portion of the trail that the ad hoc committee has been working on.
Yep, through your worship, that is correct. So it would be monies that would go into a parkland reserve, and the use of those reserves would be for park and recreational type purposes. Yeah, so they would fall under the same umbrella of recreation, if you will. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Ange. Is there anything further with respect to this piece of property before we move on? Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Worship, I would just note too, we do collect for development of new parks and new trails through development charges as well. So we have a number of, for example, the Millhouse Yard subdivision, putting in the actual, playground structures. We're collecting DCs for that. The subdivision on Old Hamburg Road, we're collecting DCs for trails in that subdivision and active parkland equipment in there as well. So we're collecting, there's multiple streams in which we're collecting revenue for parkland development. This is just another potential avenue to boost those reserves as well.
Thank you.
Thanks. Go ahead, Dave. Oh yeah. Yep. We'll take another 10-minute break and then we should be able to get to the end. So, folks, we'll see you in about 10 minutes. Perfect. Welcome back, everyone. We're going to continue on with the next piece of property. Go ahead, Mike.
So this piece of property is a landlocked parcel immediately north of 1685 County Road 9. So it's about a 20-acre parcel. It was previously declared surplus in 2008, but given that it's landlocked and it's predominantly wetland and floodplain, it's really not a developable parcel. There is a little sliver of rural zoning at the very south limit of the property, but given the lack of road frontage, there's really no opportunity to do much with this property. Curious of council's desire to potentially retain this, potential nature reserve in the future, something to that effect. I mean, it's really not a developable parcel, but there could be some, trail development down the road. I mean, this is not an immediate thing, but curious of council's thoughts. I mean, it's really not a high value property, but might be worth something someday in another format.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, through your worship to Michael. So is that something like a chunk of land that like you could have a walking trail on? Because I see like it is lots of potential or lots of wetland and stuff in there and environmentally protected. But is that something you could do a walking trail on eventually at some point?
Yep. So Conservation Authority allows, walking trails. They're trying to mitigate hazards and I'll say damage to more expensive development, such as a house or building. Trails, not a problem. Boardwalks, that should be permissible, I would think, in the future. Yes.
Okay, because that's one of the common complaints I get out that way when there's no place to walk and people are complaining about walking on the sides of the road, that if there was, so that's not something we could do in the future. Maybe we should look at retaining that piece.
Yeah, absolutely. The only issue I'll say is getting people from County Road 9 to this property. Since it's landlocked, it's private ownership all around. So the municipality would need to, approach some private landowners to maybe get a small right of way to allow people to access this land. But
I mean, at least in my personal opinion, I don't see any hurry to surplus it. I mean, it's not hurting anything where it is now, and the value to it is there may be value to it at some point, but to surplus it and try and because it'd be class 2, I guess is how you would classify it, right? But it's a big chunk of property to class 2, I would think. But
yep, this would be a class 2 property. So I mean, it's really not. If it were sold, it wouldn't be a major taxation revenue generator at all.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, through your worship. Yeah, the only advantage would be if somebody did buy it, they might be able to come in by water, barge everything in, build a house on that far tip if possible. But I've been down in there and I don't think that's quite possible.
No, the only area I'll say free and clear where you could put a building is at the very south end. So if it's a water access only property and you got a dock at the north end, you're on foot for quite a ways to get to that house. So
yeah, it's virtually has no
it's
value at all. Yeah, go ahead, Ange.
Through your worship, so, I mean, it's not serving us any purpose. I'm looking at where the property is and chances are you're not going to get permission or an easement for access. Would Quinte Conservation be interested? If we can't sell it for money to put in our account, could we deed it to Quinte Conservation?
we can have those conversations with the CA. I'm not sure if this is Quinte or Cataraqui. It's right along the where the watershed splits there, so we'd have to confirm which conservation authority it is. But yeah, we can have those conversations. I'm not sure their desire, just given that it's landlocked. If they were to program it as a conservation area where they're looking to draw people to it, there's no real way to get to it other than by boat. But certainly something that we can we can bring up.
Yep, go ahead, Mike.
My only, we'll just keep, my opinion is we just keep it. Do not give it to any conservation authority because they're gonna just go ahead and take, no offense, but they're gonna go ahead and they're gonna take it. Then they're gonna say, oh, we want to build a trail on it. All right. And then they're gonna fee you as a municipality to build the fee that they own and that we have no control over. So I'm not giving the guy the gun and the bullets also. So no. So we'll just go ahead and keep it ourselves and have a nice day.
Thanks. Thanks, Mike. Is there any other comments or questions with respect to this? I guess I don't know if there's any will to surplus and sell at this point, but time's a wonderful thing. Maybe the answer will come up next week or next year or next decade. I don't know. But is there any further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next one.
So this is at the very north limit of Champlain Street. So here's County Road 2. Here's the town's public works yard, sort of over here. This is the sand and salt dome in this image here. The new subdivision is further south on Old Hamburg Road, and Champlain runs north from Old Hamburg Road. If that makes sense to everybody, just to know where we are geographically. Across the road was a former quarry. The municipality purchased that a number of years ago, surrendered the license, and we've been using it as an excess soils storage site and a snow dump site. It's starting to fill up, but we still routinely use it. This property is zoned rural. I believe it's zoned rural. So it could be developed with, a single house, an on-site sewage system and a well. But given the proximity to both our active operations to the west and knowing that water would be challenging given the rock cut immediately beside it, I don't know there would be much ability to get a good source of potable water in this on this property. Because we're not looking at extending the water main this far north, just given that it enters the subdivision far further south, and it's almost uneconomical to extend it this far north. So, and even still, the sanitary sewer wouldn't be going in this direction either. It's all heading west and under the CN rail line. It's not, there's just water in this general area. So, staff don't really see the need to surplus this. I think it's acting as a bit of a buffer between our operations. And we have an existing house here. I think if we added another one right here, I feel like we would just be getting a whole lot of different complaints around potable water supply, noise, dust, odor, those sorts of things, just given that it's at such a high elevation relative to this operation over here. There's not a lot of mitigation between those two uses, unlike the subdivision lands to the south where there's tall berms and plantings and the like that'll be installed. So staff don't see the need to surplus this, but it could theoretically be developed. I just think there's a lot of challenges and would be curious to hear council's perspective on this.
Anyone wants to weigh in? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Galvin.
Yeah, personally, through your worship, personally, I think we should just keep this one, just retain it. Like you say, we've used it for a long time for dumping snow, and God only knows what else in there. And anybody even try to get a well up in there, it's going to be very difficult, very, very expensive. So I think just maintain it and keep it ourselves.
Yep. Thanks, Brian. I tend to agree with you. As soon as you said the buffer word, I like the fact that it buffers, and it does butt up to the quarry there, the old quarry anyways, to a certain extent. So I don't think there's really a need to surplus that one, but that would be my opinion. Is there anything further? Seeing nothing, we'll move on to the next one.
So this is a vacant parcel on Schenck Street. This was dedicated as parkland during the time of the subdivision development. I've mostly got it on here today just to draw attention to it. It's it's really an underutilized parcel today. It is encumbered by flood elevation. So this is a lower lying parcel. You can kind of see some ditching across to the east where it comes under Shank Street and is slowly meanders its way down to the water. There's a lot of encumbrances here with this property insofar as natural hazards just in the mapping that we have today. But there is the potential for, possibly a boat launch in the future, and it is pedestrian access to the water today. Curious of council's thoughts, and much like the Bayview properties, I know that this one was dedicated as parkland at the time, so it would absolutely need to be put into parkland reserves if this were sold. So the monies from the sale would need to go into parkland reserve. Curious if council has any appetite to do anything with this property insofar as sale at all.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Calvert.
Thank you through your worship. Michael, any idea what the water depth is like there? Because if I recall, it's pretty shallow and swampy in there, I think.
I believe it is. Just looking at the aerial imagery here, it looks to be quite shallow, just from the shadows.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking for potential boat launch, I don't think you're going to be able to dig into the marsh there and launch anything there, so.
Yep, go ahead, Mike.
I kind of know this area. So the point is, yeah, it's the lowest. It was below the 75.8, the geodetic level. So the point is to build on it. And the reason why the lot, and Johnny Juliana was the planner at the time. All right, we had a difference of opinion, but this is what he wanted was the thing. As the Bayshore Road gets developed, and as you can see, the Bayshore Road is getting more and more and more people there. I didn't help the cause by doing this, but what they've done is there's going to be some interior lots and people want water access. Now as you go further down around the Bayshore Road, you'll see no trespassing, no trespassing, no trespassing, because there are so many people that are going across other people's properties. So as a municipality and as you have interior lots built on the other property to the other side, people need water access. We've always, as this municipality, we've always kept our water access properties because a lot of people want to kayak, want to do this. This can be, it is the lowest lot. And if you count from the houses back off Applewood Cove Road to Shank Street that goes around, if you count the 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth house, and you see how far back it was, that was one of the last houses built, and see how close to the road it is because it is so low. The Cataract Conservation Authority made them raise it so high with the reverse flow check valves and everything else on it. So the other houses that were closer, they were done earlier, but as rules change, what you can do and what you can't do, and it's only 1 acre. So I know I gave the lot to the town. So, but all I'm saying is I'd like to keep it because I don't care where it is in this town. If you want to keep your water access, keep your water access, because you have the other one that we had quite a few concerns, a lot of ratepayers upset about. And then you have it down at Dovestown Park. And as the park, I've had people say, well, why can't I park my boat and trailer beside the museum? Because somebody's been telling them, no, you can't park it there anymore. That's the town, that's the UEL park. You have to park it on the side. And then you have some residents down there saying, well, we don't want that, but it's going to be more and more used. All right. And the only other water access you have, all right, is in down by the Glenora Ferry. The new subdivision, there is another town owned that's off the end that I don't see. I don't know if it's in this report. No, it's not.
We've identified it as town-owned property, but not recommending.
Yeah, so there's another parkland with water access down by the Glenora Ferry and that other subdivision up there. All right, it's a narrow strip, but the water access, if everybody's traveled somewhere to anywhere there has been water, you want to keep your water access. That's just the only thing that I lost in the debate was years ago on Enza Ben's Point when they did that subdivision. They still kept a water access, but they only kept it as a walkway. All right. And there was a lot of residents that had used it, you know what I mean, to get water access for their cattle or this or that or anything else. And now, all right, now it's just a small little lane, walking lane. So to keep keep the water access, as far as I'm concerned, it's not like if it's an interior lot, okay, fine, surplus it, but water access, keep it. Because as the municipality grows, you will see that, because back to Angela's neck of the woods, out in Sherman's Point, there was a bond subdivision that went all the way around the Sherman's Point, went all the way along. And the municipality at the time, and that was north of Dobbstown, I wasn't on at the time, but they never took a lot. All right. And then when everybody goes ice fishing, guess where they went? Went over all these lots. All right. And when they went across all these lots, and where did they go to the washroom? All right. Where did they do all this other stuff? Say it was just a gong show. So Sherman's Point, you only have one water access, and that's the one off the Bayview Drive. So keep your water accesses as far as possible, because it's future incentive for people to move the area. If they buy an interior lot or buy a lot somewhere else, how do I get access? And you're not going to go past 3 kilometers of traffic at the ferry waiting for a one ferry running to dock your boat, because you're going to hit oncoming traffic. So there we go.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, we appreciate the local knowledge there. So, is there any other comments with respect to this piece of property? Nope. We move on to the next one then.
This is a piece of property that is on Big Creek Road, and Smith Road is right here. This is a very, very small sliver of property, and what I was able to find on it is on a old reference plan that there is a spring noted on this sliver of property, like a water spring, it seems. So the town came into ownership of this seeming spring. I haven't had a chance to go out there to see if the spring's still, operating, but this is a very small sliver of property that we own that seemingly there might be a spring at this property. Don't know if anybody has any local knowledge of this or not.
I don't, but it sounds like maybe a good afternoon drive someday. So, any thoughts or I mean, it's so small that I don't think there's any purpose in trying to get rid of it. Yeah. Is there any other thoughts? Go ahead, Ange.
So this would be a case of approaching the landowner and saying, hey, have you got a nickel 390? We got a deal for you. Okay. Yeah, I guess if there's no legislation that says we have to keep it because there's a spring there, yeah.
No tax roll assigned.
Do it either. Yeah.
No.
No, NAMPAC doesn't know we own this. I found this through other means.
Yeah, and we really don't, I mean, I think it probably warrants a little bit more digging, because we don't know if maybe any of the neighbors are using it or any of the farmers are using it. We just don't know, right? So it might be worth a drive just to take a look at it if we can figure out where it is.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it to council's attention. This is a very odd parcel to own, but we were able to find that apparently there's a spring on this property at one point in time. So 0.01 acres, like very, very small. Like it's 10 feet wide and maybe 40 feet deep.
And it would kind of make sense as to how we came in possession of it, right? So at some point, people did draw water from it at some point. So, and that's probably.
It was specifically parted out on a reference plan that contemplated an old subdivision in this general area years and years and years ago. It was noted as a spring. So.
Okay. I think we're going to keep it for a bit anyway, so we can figure it out, because it is kind of an interesting one. Moving on to the next one.
And this is the last parcel. So this is this is a large parcel that MPAC does not know that we own, but I was able to find out that we do own. This is at the end of the very north limit of Robert and West Streets. So this is a 1.5 acre property, has a lot of frontage on 2 roads. We have services at the lot line. We have power at the lot line, and unfortunately, it's abutting, some heavier industrial uses. There's a scrapyard to the north, and there's some other industrial uses to the west. But I could foresee this as potential indoor recreation facility property in the future. I think there's good opportunity for that. It's adjacent to schools. It's on the periphery of a residential area. All the services are there. It's screaming to be developed. I would not recommend that it be developed with a sensitive use, just given the existing industrial operations to the north. But I think this is a strategic property that the town can hold on to, whether it's an indoor recreation facility, an outdoor recreation facility. I think there's a lot of opportunity with this, given the size and general configuration of it. But just wanted to draw council's attention to its existence to help inform any future discussions in that space.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Is there any questions or comments on that? I tend to agree with you. I like the way you're thinking on that, Mike. It's we don't know what it's good for right now, but I'm sure a reason will come up in the not too distant future. So go ahead, Dave.
I'm sorry, Your Worship, but an opportunity like this, I gotta jump. Michael, you're saying indoor or outdoor recreational? Are you talking like a hole in the ground filled with water?
I would defer to Chris Brown's perspective. So he noted when we went through this exercise that we have a known need for some in the future. We're not talking today, but in the future, an indoor facility like basketball courts and the like. He didn't want us to get rid of a whole lot of land when we might need land for that use in the future. And this is just what I've identified as a potential site for that type of use. I don't know if you have anything to add at all, Chris, just from that vantage point.
Yeah, just very briefly, through your worship, just touching on what Michael said, he summed it up pretty good. I just want to be mindful of in the future, we're going to need indoor recreational facilities that include pool, gymnasium, things like that, a field house, something of that nature that people can do all sorts of things in: pickleball, shuffleboard, volleyball, basketball, all kinds of things. We don't have that now. Unfortunately, with the old arena burning down, we lost another indoor community space in our community. So we are I'm looking down the road to something that's nice, new and shiny, whatever that may be. Councillor Pinnell, I'm not sure, but we do want to reserve a little bit of land, especially in town, that we can use for recreational use.
Thank you. I agree 100%. Thank you.
Yeah, and it is, the location's good, so it's centrally located, everything. So no, I don't see any hurry to surplus that one either, unless somebody else has got some other ideas. But if there's no other ideas, I think that we got to the end of it, didn't we, Mike?
That concludes the list of items to be discussed today. So I appreciate council's feedback on every piece of land that we looked at. It was a long afternoon, but very worthwhile from my perspective. So thank you very much. And July 22nd, we'll be back. We intend to make recommendation on the results of the RFP for the residential real estate agent of record at that meeting, and come back with the land disposition strategy. So how we go about staging lands to be sold. We don't want to flood the market all at once. How do we want to stage out certain lands and those sort of aspects. So we'll bring that back and then refine this list of recommended surplus for council's consideration.
Great. Thanks, Michael. It's been a productive afternoon, and it's been an interesting afternoon. And so we need those every once in a while, but I think it's going to be a very productive venture for our municipality to clean up some of those things. So having said that, we'll look for a motion that council receive for information the growth infrastructure, corporate land registry, and surplus property identification report, and further that council direct staff to bring a report to the regular session of council on on July 22nd, 2025, which incorporates the feedback provided at this meeting, at which point council will consider a recommendation to declare or ratify certain lands as surplus. Moved by Councillor Shank, second by Councillor Norrie. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. And we'll look for motion for a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of Corporation of Town of Greater Napanee. Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Hicks. Ready first, second, and finally passed this 26th day of June, 2025. All in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. And look for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Hicks, second by Councillor Pennell. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks, folks. Again, a very productive afternoon, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.